Overseas France consists of all the French-administered territories outside Europe, mostly remains of the French colonial empire. Overseas France includes island territories in the Atlantic, Pacific and Indian Oceans, French Guiana on the South American continent, and several peri-Antarctic islands as well as a claim in Antarctica. Outside Europe, 4 classes of overseas French territorial administration currently exist. Regions, collectivities, the special status of New Caledonia, and uninhabited territories. Permanent inhabitants have French nationality. They have representation in the French Parliament, can vote in elections for the President of France, and can vote in elections to the European Parliament. From a legal and administrative standpoint, the classes have varying legal status and levels of autonomy. 2,785,000 people lived in overseas France in January 2021. Overseas France covers a land area of 119,396 square kilometers, accounts for 96.7% of the EEZ of the French republics. These are excluding the district of Atalaï land, where French sovereignty is effective de jure by French law, but where the French exclusive claim on this part of Antarctica is frozen by the Antarctic Treaty. Overseas regions have exactly the same status as mainland France's regions. The French Constitution provides that, in general, French laws and regulations apply to French overseas regions the same as in metropolitan France, but can be adapted as needed to suit the region's particular needs. Hence, the local administrations of French overseas regions cannot themselves pass new laws. Overseas collectivities are empowered to make their own laws, except in certain areas reserved to the French national government. The overseas collectivities are governed by local elected assemblies and by the French Parliament and French government, with a cabinet member, the Minister of the Overseas, in charge of issues related to the overseas territories. The category of overseas collectivity was created by France's constitutional reform of March 28, 2003. Each overseas collectivity has its own statutory laws. New Caledonia is neither an overseas region nor an overseas collectivity. It has a sui generis status enshrined in the French Constitution. In keeping with the Naumiar Accord, the last of the 4 types are uninhabited territories, some with some transient scientific research staff. With 2,790,000 inhabitants in 2018, overseas France accounts for 4.1% of the population of the French Republic. They enjoy a corresponding representation in the 2 chambers of the French Parliament. In the 14th legislature, overseas France is represented by 27 deputies in the French National Assembly, accounting for 4.7% of the 577 deputies in the National Assembly. Since September 2011, overseas France has been represented by 21 senators in the French Senate, accounting for 6.0% of the 348 senators in the Senate. The 11 inhabited French overseas territories are. Another referendum for independence occurred on October 4, 2020, with 53.3% voting against and 46.7% voting in favor of independence from France. Ranked by population in the urban area,